Welcome to another edition of From the Front Lines, where we discuss both the day-to-day and one-of-a-kind issues facing real estate managers. I'm Suzanne Hill, and our topic today is championing accessibility. I'm here with Brett Heising, principal at Brett Heising Consulting. Welcome, Brett. Thanks for being here.
Suzanne, it's my absolute pleasure. I always enjoy talking about accessibility.
So, Brett, tell us a little bit about yourself first. You are a wheelchair user, and you've been championing accessibility in public spaces, the travel industry, and so forth for years. Is that correct?
Yeah, just a little bit of background about me. Started really focusing on travel accessibility in 2012 when I launched my previous company, Brett Approved, which was a travel and entertainment website for folks with disabilities. I used to travel a lot for work before I got that entrepreneurial bug, as they say. I was a PR, public affairs, media relations professional. I used to travel quite a bit for work, and I grew weary of very rarely getting the accessible hotel room that I needed. And so now I've pivoted to Brett Heising Consulting, as you mentioned, and that allows me to work with big brands and companies outside of travel to really talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and where disability fits, and how to really engage consumers with disabilities respectfully. So really kind of broadening my scope, and I really appreciate this type of work because it's one of those things that people don't really think about until they're forced to think about it. So at Brett Heising Consulting, we help companies, kind of be as proactive as possible.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that you're branching out to other industries outside of travel, like our folks in real estate management. So as our organizations do focus more and more on DE and I initiatives, accessibility has come back into the forefront. What would you say are some of the top barriers to accessibility?
I think there's a misconception that accessibility, making a location accessible is cost prohibitive. That is to say, I think there's a misconception that it's going to cost a ton of money, and so often it doesn't. It's about being thoughtful. It's about making sure that pathways, entrances, and points of ingress and egress are barrier free. Making sure that furniture placement in a given room, let's say an apartment, furniture placement, in the living quarters of an apartment, if it's a furnished unit, that there's not oversized furniture there, right? Making sure that buttons to get up to a second or third floor of an elevator, making sure that those buttons aren't obstructed by trash cans and things like that. So I think really when I work with big brands, when I work with companies, people are often surprised and, dare I say, shocked at how inexpensive it can be to make a property or make any given entity more accessible just by kind of being thoughtful and really kind of thinking through, the ultimate goal of making things as welcoming as possible, regardless of where we sit on the spectrum of physical ability.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of alluded to some of these things, but as organizations, are there other ways we can overcome some of these obstacles, some of these barriers, and really make our spaces more accessible?
Yeah, I think the biggest way to overcome barriers, as you say, and that's the title of my talk at the Global Summit is in fact removing barriers to success. And the biggest barrier to success, quite honestly, is education, right? It's just knowledge, and people are busy. Everybody's got a bunch of stuff going on. People have shareholders to answer to. People have deadlines to meet, and so oftentimes accessibility, while people care about it, it's oftentimes in the background. And so the biggest way to become an accessibility champion is just to learn about it, and you learn about it through somebody like me, who's open and honest. Every talk that I give, Suzanne, is it's a safe environment, so to speak. There are no dumb questions, right? I mean, we're coming to the Global Summit to learn, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And I think the cool thing about the way I approach things is I guarantee you that the people who attend my talk are going to leave feeling much better about themselves and much more secure in their knowledge about accessibility than they did when they walked into my talk. So it's all about being open, honest, and transparent, and really leveraging that education, because without the knowledge, we can't possibly expect people to make improvements to properties.
Absolutely. And it's so great to create that safe space because that's really how we increase that knowledge level across the industry. As a wheelchair user yourself, are there any other insights or best practices that you'd like to share with us? What do you like to see?
I really like to see, for example, ramps that are up to code that have the proper level of rise and run. I really like to see one of the big challenges for me. My hands. If we were on camera today, my hands look pretty typical, but I have some significant dexterity challenges. So even something like opening an apartment door, opening a hotel room door can be very challenging. And so just making sure that the tension on that door is something that's easy to manage. I mean, that takes, 5 minutes for somebody from maintenance to do that.
Mhm.
And then I like to see, I'm a real big proponent of making sure that we have accessible restrooms, accessible bathrooms in properties, and making sure that, if a tenant, for example, comes in and she or they require grab bars, making sure that the walls are properly reinforced and those grab bars can be installed. So again, what I like to see is just attention to detail, so that if we have to, modify a property in terms of accessibility, that we're ready to do it.
And these are exactly the kinds of insights that we'll be hearing more of from you at our upcoming Global Summit in Dallas in October, where you'll be speaking specifically to our audience of real estate managers about accessibility in our industry. Anything that you'd like to preview for us there, Brett?
I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and that's really what I want to get across. And I hope very much that doesn't sound elementary, but I think when we talk about accessibility, when we talk about things like how can we make properties more inclusive and better for everybody, it can be kind of a dry subject, right? It can be like, oh man, maybe there's another marketing thing that I could attend instead of this disability focused deal or whatever. But what I want people to know is it's going to be fun, and you're going to and you're going to learn a lot about yourself, and you're going to learn a lot about the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Fair Housing Act, and how all these things play together. And again, the little things that we can do to make our properties inclusive and make sure that everybody who wants to rent from us has the opportunity to do so. It's really, I think what I want people to know, it's really about putting anybody who attends this session in a position to be successful.
Well, inclusion is one of our core values too here at IROM, and I am super excited to see you at the summit. So thanks again for your time, Brett. We'll see you in Dallas.
Absolute pleasure, my friend. Can't wait. Looking forward to it, and we'll see you soon.
Visit IROM.org for more knowledge to take on real estate management's most dynamic challenges. That's www.irem.org.